From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
It's a farm, but it's not out in the country.
And I think it's important to teach folks how to conserve and what you should be conserving when it comes to land.
How this farm in the middle of a city is changing minds and lives. The battle for water.
I burst into tears over it a couple of times because I'm thinking, it's just such a hopeless situation.
What some farmers in the West are facing as this basic component for growing crops runs critically low. A deadline looms that could have an instant impact on agriculture.
And if they don't make the right decision, it could really wreak havoc when it comes to agriculture, because that's the eve of our harvest.
What it could mean when it comes to moving things by rail, right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. A new problem could be facing farmers come harvest time: the inability to move grain by rail in this country. A board the president established to work on the ongoing railroad labor dispute has released its report to the White House. AgDay's Michelle Rook has details and what the next steps will be.
Clinton, the Presidential Emergency Board was tasked with finding a solution to the labor dispute between Class 1 railroads and the labor unions. The board offered a handful of recommendations, but the biggest was the increase in salary for rail workers over the life of the contract. The board recommended a 24% wage increase over 5 years for rail labor, which National Grain and Feed Association officials call a fair compromise.
You may be asking, where does that stand with respect to where the two sides were at? So the rail carriers were at 17% is what they were offering, and the rail labor, what they were requesting, was 31%. So 24% is right in between those two figures.
They also suggested the railroad pay out $1,000 service recognition bonus annually versus a $1,000 signing bonus they had proposed, plus an increase in health benefits, additional personal days, and changes in how travel expenditures are reimbursed. Mike Steenhoek with the Soy Transportation Coalition says the recommendations aren't binding and the parties have 30 days to accept or reject them. During that time, the labor unions are prevented from going on strike.
Around the middle of September, there's going to be a decision to be made by those two parties. And if they don't make the right decision, it could really wreak havoc when it comes to agriculture, because that's the eve of our harvest.
The earliest possible day to strike could take place is September 16th, and Steenhoek says they're hopeful the recommendations will result in productive negotiations between the railroads and rail workers to avoid any disruptions.
We need to have our supply chain operating on all cylinders. That particularly includes our rail industry. If we don't, it's going to be one more barrier to profitability for farmers in the United States.
He says the lack of reliable rail service has been an issue for months now, and the labor disputes have only added to the problem. So agriculture needs a resolution. If no agreement is reached during the next 30 days, Congress could step in and mandate the PEB recommendations or some other agreement or settlement. Congress could also impose additional cooling off periods to avert a strike.
All right, thanks, Michelle. And more issues for the rail industry after a train derailment in the Texas Panhandle. This one happening between Hereford and Dawn, southwest of Amarillo. People sharing photos and videos since it happened just off Highway 60. Now, it's not known what caused the derailment, but BNSF confirmed to us an eastbound intermodal freight train derailed 17 cars. There were no injuries to the train crew. They say they were working to clear the area and restore the track. Areas of the country have seen some much needed rain lately. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joins us. And Matt, you're seeing some improvements in the root zone moisture map.
That's right, Clinton. We have had some improvements in that root zone moisture map, and you can see it right here behind me. Southern parts of Texas, parts of the Great Lakes, even right down through parts of the Ohio Valley. Saw a little bit more rain as we headed through this past week, and we've had more rain in the Southwest, and we're going to even see more of that over the next few days. Still dry right through the middle part of the country, parts of the Corn Belt there, Nebraska to parts of Iowa, and even into the Dakotas, where we do need some more moisture. But more rain coming for the Southwest. A moderate risk for excessive rainfall through Saturday. That includes Phoenix, Sierra Vista, and El Paso. And then rainfall will spread through parts of Texas and Oklahoma. And you can see a lot of that rainfall going on right through the Mid-South and through the eastern seaboard as we head through next week. Parts of the Corn Belt going to see more of that rainfall as well. And again, this goes all the way through next week and into most of the last week of August. So farther into the month, still dealing with a lot of that rainfall. And here's a different take on the back to school photo. Nick Shoemaker of Scotia, Nebraska, saying this is his back to school photo since all 3 of his boys and his wife went back to school. He says he got to change 4 pivot tires and a U-joint all by himself. He says he called his dad for help and he arrived about 5 minutes before the job was done. It's often how it works out. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
All right, thanks, Matt. And we're about to get our own look at how things are growing as the Pro Farmer Crop Tour heads out into the fields. That starts next Monday. Now, if you can't make it to one of the in-person events each night, we will also have an online event you won't want to miss. To get details on this year's tour, check out profarmer.com/register. Meanwhile, large portions of the U.S. continue to grapple with historic heat and humidity, including areas along the Colorado River. As we first told you yesterday, the government is taking steps to try and stop the key water source from drying up. Isabel Rosales spoke with one farmer dealing with drought every day.
Millions of Americans bracing for painful water cuts.
If we don't get water, how can we keep going?
A mega drought draining rivers and lakes throughout the Southwest. Lake Mead, the nation's largest reservoir, at its lowest water level on record. The drought threatening hydropower at the Hoover Dam, now approaching its lowest point to be able to produce power. Upstream at Lake Powell, water levels just 44 feet away from stopping hydropower generation.
Crops are dying, the desert is drying. This goes all across the Southwest.
And for the first time ever, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation announcing a Tier 2 water shortage for the Colorado River starting in January.
It's killing us. You're at nature's mercy.
It's raising alarms in several states, looking to cut up to 25% of the river water usage at the Bureau's request for now.
I drive around and I look at empty canals. Literally, I burst into tears over it a couple of times because I'm thinking, it's just such a hopeless situation.
Across the West and South, 40 million Americans are under heat alerts this week. And if it's hot now, scientists warn it could get even worse in the next 30 years. More than 100 million Americans could face a heat index above 125 degrees during the hottest days of the year, according to climate research nonprofit First Street Foundation. Their study found an extreme heat belt would stretch from Texas to the Great Lakes. I'm Isabel Rosales reporting.
A welcome sign for one group trying to feed hungry people around the world. This ship loaded with Ukrainian grain leaving a Black Sea port. Now the ship is carrying wheat. It's the first shipment of grain for the World Food Program since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now money to buy the grain coming in part from U.S. aid, which gave more than $68 million to the effort. Some 23,000 metric tons sailed out of the UN chartered ship called Brave Commander. It's bound for the drought-hit Horn of Africa region, where hunger threatens more than 20 million people.
We're very excited that this is the first ship to be leaving this port and that a humanitarian ship is really leading the way. We also hope that this will be the beginning of normal operations and that Ukrainian food can start to go out and support the world and end hunger and bring down global food prices.
Ukraine said on Wednesday it expects 5 ships to arrive at one Black Sea port for loading with more than 70,000 tons of ag products. Officials saying 36 ships have passed through the grain corridor created by a mutual agreement between Russia, Ukraine, Turkey, and the UN. Soybeans find their footing after drifting below $14 on Tuesday. We'll get details next. And later, lessons from the land. In the middle of the city, we'll stop by a farm in Baltimore, in the country.
Greetings from USDA headquarters in Washington, D.C. This is meteorologist Brad Rippey. Congratulations on 40 years of AgDay production.
Soybeans finally heading back into the green midweek following 2 days of declines. Michelle Rook joins us once again with more.
Sean Hackett with Hackett Financial Advisors joining us with analysis, and we've had some choppy action here in the grain and livestock sector. But let's talk about the grains. We did have on Wednesday both corn and soybeans back up here, so a lot of uncertainty in the market economically and geopolitically. What wins out here?
I think ultimately, if the Taiwan situation can de-escalate in the minds of the market, I think we push higher. I believe the fundamentals are such that we should push higher, but the fear over this Taiwan escalation, shutting down of trade, ratcheting up of potentially further economic and logistical fracturings that we've seen is something the market is really concerned about, because what happened with Ukraine and Russia, we talked about that for months and then it happened. So the market's a little gun shy, kind of putting to the side some of these things that seem like they shouldn't happen because they may actually happen. So I think that we need a de-escalation of that right now.
So did we see a bit of a technical or a dead cat bounce in corn and soybeans? Because soybeans, we did see the forward spreads working, so maybe some demand pushing it as well?
Absolutely. I think, every time this market's starting, when you really think about it, we put in this low a couple of weeks back, and we actually have been working higher, but it's been like 2 steps forward, 1.5 steps back. It doesn't actually feel very good, but when you look at the chart, you go, we're actually sort of moving higher, but it feels terrible. So I think we're actually moving higher, and I think the fundamentals are driving it, but we just have these huge headwinds that keep hitting us across the side and creating this downside volatility that's scaring the market.
Yeah, and that's why we keep setting back here on these Ukraine shipments and whatnot, right?
Yeah, the shipments, so far most of the shipments were the ships that were already trapped there. Yeah. So is that it? Or are new ships going to go in? And this is actually, a change in the trend. The reality is no one really knows, other than I find it hard to believe that Russia it's in their best interest to maintain this moment of goodwill. I think there's something else going on here, and in a blink of an eye, they could shut that lane down, and everything changes yet again.
Yeah. So still a lot of uncertainty. We'll see if we can get maybe a little calmer heads coming in. Thanks so much for joining us, Sean Hackett with Hackett Financial Advisors. Weather is coming up.
Technology Days is back. August 25th through the 27th. Come see for yourself why this annual event draws thousands of farmers to Atlanta, Indiana. Learn more and register today at bexhybrids.com/field-shows.
And it's going to be another warm one across the country. Temperature is going to be rising up into the 90s and triple digits, especially across the upper northwest and even parts of the San Joaquin and parts of the southwest as well. Still dealing with some rain in there. That'll keep things a little bit cooler, but still going to be warm and muggy across the deep south and even across the middle part of the country. Still dealing with lower humidity though, and that's keeping those temperatures relatively mild across parts of the northeast and the Great Lakes as we head through this afternoon. Now, a little bit cooler, and you can see where all this green coming on in, some lower temperatures, lower humidity, creating a nice feel there in even down into the Ohio Valley, but still staying warm across the south tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow afternoon, again, temperatures back into the 80s, all the way up into the Great Lakes, 90s across the middle of the country, and still dealing with that high heat in the northwest and across parts of California. Here's a look at this afternoon in parts of the southwest, still dealing with temperatures around 101 there in Yuma and in the hundreds there across parts of the San Joaquin Valley, including Bakersfield and Fresno. And then where those temperatures a little bit lower across Flagstaff down towards Silver City, that's where we're going to see the chances for rain start to increase as we head into the afternoon. And this is all thanks to a big ridge still in place across the west. You can see it's trying to break down a little bit. That's creating that chance for those showers and storms. And then here's a look at that jet stream right here, creating that unsettled weather across the Great Lakes into early next week. And that's something that we're going to continue to see hang on into Monday or Tuesday before things will clear out. Risk for heavy rain, though, across parts of the southwest, and then eventually moving its way eastward across really parts of Oklahoma and Texas into early next week. So it will be a very active week across the southwest and the deep south. And it's all thanks to this trough right here, kind of dragging a front along that, heading into late this week, and then eventually going to be seeing more high pressure moving on in. Still hot and humid across the middle part of the country, with more chances of rain out in the west and more showers and storms beginning to work their way into the upper Midwest as we head into Friday and the weekend. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Tyler, Texas, afternoon scattered thunderstorms, a high near 84 degrees, 73 degrees with showers and thunderstorms in Fosston, Minnesota, and out in Wickenburg, Arizona, afternoon thunderstorms likely, a high near 97.
Beef is growing in popularity, and so is its demand. We'll have new numbers next. And later, the land can teach us so many life lessons. We'll see how a community in Baltimore is doing just that for younger generations.
Ag Day, brought to you by Rumensin. Rumensin's quality, consistency, and efficiency make it the right choice for your cattle operation. Rumensin, trusted by generations.
The global beef market is expected to grow in size through 2030. Market research firm Grandview Research says the global beef market size is expected to reach more than $712 billion by the year 2030 and an annual growth rate of 4.8% from 2022 to 2030. Now, the company attributes the increase to more demand for animal-based food and protein-rich diets. It says growth is expected especially in the Asia-Pacific region thanks to expanded tourism, increasing disposable incomes, and urbanization. Now, hay supplies appear to be tightening up. The August crop production report showing that alfalfa hay production is forecast at just over 49 million tons. Now, that's down 0.3% from last year, but more than 13% below the 10-year average. All other hay production is forecast at just over 67 million tons. Now, that's down 4.6% year over year and more than 7% off the 10-year average. Alfalfa and other hay prices, well, they're forecast at record levels this year. Daryl Peel of Oklahoma State University says drought cut hay production last year and the impacts are still being felt this year. May 1st hay stocks were down almost 7% from last year. Farms come in all shapes, sizes, and locations. Up next, see how this community farm is turning out life lessons and plenty of produce in the country.
Registration is open for the 2022 Pro Farmer Crop Tour. Join our team as we gain insight on the 2022 growing season in person or online. Visit profarmercroptour.com/register to select the stop nearest you.
Farms aren't just confined to rural America. Our national videographer Russ Natusco takes us to Baltimore, Maryland, where America's Conservation Ag Movement and the Natural Resources Conservation Service are helping an entire community learn about the importance of the land and what it can provide.
White Lock Community Farm is a community space that is centered around helping the community and teaching the community and bringing them in. And I think it's important to teach folks how to conserve and what you should be conserving when it comes to land and understanding the power of land and the power that you have when you have ownership of land. And then if you're using that land to produce, that even elevates your power.
It's an event about careers and conservation. It feels good to know that we're doing this work and that it's helping so many people. I do a little bit of everything, mainly programs and community engagement.
Next door to us, there are people who have purchased, I think it's $25, and you can get your raised bed or a plot of land, and you have that area where you can plant what you want to plant.
So I think it's really cool to grow your own food.
I've got some squash growing, spring squash, summer squash, and I have a couple different varieties up here.
What I love about gardening is that I get to plant something from either a seed or a small plant and see it grow into something new and beautiful, and also be able to feed myself and others with it.
Actually, the community garden had been there first, before the farm, but this neighborhood is such an intense food desert. The neighbors agreed collectively that there was more that needed to be done to bring fresh foods to the area.
I look at the ground as each year it's my canvas. What kind of art can I create this year?
So it's really the creative process that I think I most enjoy about gardening.
I'm trying to make this paradise right now, and I can. You just have to want to do it.
You can see there's like a chicken wire basket. It's full of soil that was actually weeds in the beginning. That was all made right here on the farm. This is less than an acre. Yep, both sides of the street, less than an acre. It's important for young people to know where their food is coming from. We are very proud that we are able to provide the services and the produce that we are for our community.
All right, thanks, Russ. A fantastic story there. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in the farm country.